Hi everyone, welcome back to FilmGrearHQ, and today we will be taking a closer look at a rather unusual LED light. What I have here is a Falcon Flex Roll LED light, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a flexible LED light that can be velcroed or gaffer taped to just about any surface like a wall, a ceiling, a window, or just about anywhere else you can think of, because it's incredibly thin. As you can see, it's very lightweight and it's also very flexible, so you can put it in all sorts of tiny awkward places where you wouldn't be able to put a large LED light. For example, I tested this light inside a car, and I would never dream of fitting a 2x2 panel inside a car if it was a normal standard rigid LED panel of any sort. But with this light I was able to do that, no problem, and you'll see that a bit later in the video. But I think this is the whole point of this light. It's very easy to put a massive light into a massive space, a tiny LED panel into a tiny space, but it's very difficult to put a massive light source into a tiny space. Us being indie filmmakers, probably a lot of you are in the same situation. We often compromise on the space where we film. There's often not enough budget to rent a large studio or large property to film your project, so we often compromise on our lighting setups because there's just not enough space to put the lights where you want them. And with this light you can do exactly that. You can put them just about anywhere you want them. But before we get into all of that good stuff, the lighting test, some examples and stuff like that, let's roll back a little bit and have a look at what this light came with, run through some specs so you get a better idea of what this light actually is. Okay, so this light comes in this massive bag that doesn't even fit in my setup, and it's definitely not the strongest point of this light because there's no padding, there are no compartments inside, everything is just kind of thrown into there. But I can't really complain about it too much because often even much more expensive lights do not come with bags. They just come in retail packaging, and you then spend another $50 just to get a bag for it. So at least we have something to start with to store it while I'm looking for a better bag. But enough about this bag, let's have a look at what we have inside. So first thing is the massive tube where the actual light is stored. That's how it's shipped. I don't think I will be using this a lot. Next up we have the X-frame, and this is basically what you use to make this light into a normal light that you put on a light stand. There is also an adapter that goes in there, and then you can put this adapter onto a stand and basically use this light as a normal LED light. Next up we have the softbox, which also stores away really thin, really nice in that sense. And it comes with some diffusion and a honeycomb grid to cut down the light. Next we have some different Velcro straps. Some are self-adhesive, and then these ones you can probably tie to something and then stick onto the light. So you can maybe tie it onto a frame of some sort or anything you can think of. Moving on to something very important. Here we have the actual control panel, and then we have the power adapter. And as you can see, the control panel has a V-mount battery plate, because you can use a V-mount battery for this light if you are shooting on location and don't have any mains power. But if you are shooting indoors, then you can connect the power adapter to this plate and make this whole setup a bit tidier, a bit nicer. So just like that, these two parts become one, and you can then stick it onto a light stand, way down the light stand this way. And the last thing that we have here is the user manual, a very basic one, but I think it has everything you might need because it's very easy to use this light. I didn't really need a manual for it, but you've got it there if you need to. And at the back we have some specs, and that's what we're gonna have a look at. There are 6 lights in the Rolleiflex range, and I have the RX-24TDX, which is the biggest, most powerful light in this range. And this light has 756 bulbs, the power of 150 watts. It's a bicolor light, so it goes from 3000 Kelvin all the way to 5600. I do like that it goes slightly below 3200 for that extra warm light that you often need, because your practical lights are often lower in Kelvin than 3200, so you got this extra little range right there. The last spec that I wanted to go through is the CRI value, which is 98, and if that's true, that's a very high CRI value and it should produce a very good light quality. I have no way to test the actual CRI value, but I have some other very good lights that I've tested against this light, and later in the video you will be able to see for yourself how this light compares to the other good lights, and this way we will be able to tell if that CRI value is really that high. But before we do that, let's set up this light on a stand and I will show you all of the features on the control panel. Okay, so the light is now set up and we can have a quick look at the control unit, all of the features and what they will do to the actual light. It makes a perfect sense to have a separate unit like this with the light like this, because not only it takes off the weight from the main light, but because you will be sticking this light to a wall, window, ceiling, to the places where you won't be able to access your controls if they are on the back of the light. It makes a perfect sense to take those controls off and put them on a separate unit, and this is what this unit is for. So on this side we have the XLR input for the mains power, we have that trap that you use to put the control panel onto a light stand. Then we have a removable antenna, you don't have to have it there if you don't have the remote. That will probably be mine because it's a great little remote and I will be able to use all of the features and all of the adjustments remotely. But I just put it on there for now just to show you. And the last thing there is the on-off switch, which you can flick between on from mains power, off, and on from the V-mount battery. So like I said, already you can use this light with a V-mount battery on location, and again this is what this control panel is great for, because you don't have to stick the actual battery on the actual light, making it heavier and awkward like that. You can take all of the weight off and let the light do what it does best. So on the other side we have the DMX inputs, not something that we will ever use, and then the most important stuff is on the front here. We have the channel adjustments, again for the remote control, adjustment for the temperature right there, which also can be adjusted here, and I actually prefer it on a traditional knob like that. And then you can have the brightness adjusted again on that touch panel, and you can adjust it with the lower knob. And the light at the moment is just at 1%. That's how powerful it is. And if I flick it up to 100, it will probably blow out the whole image. Ooh, that's very bright. So a slight change of a lighting setup, because we now have the softbox on, and I've increased the power to 5%, which is really enough for what we're doing here, and it really shows how much power there is in this light. But coming back to the actual softbox, this being the bicolor light, if you are using it at its lowest Kelvin setting or the highest Kelvin setting, then you are only using half of the LEDs that it has, and with them being quite spaced out in certain situations that might result in multiple shadows. It will be difficult to detect it in most scenarios, but for example in this little setup that I've done to show it in the most obvious ways, you can see those multiple shadows coming from the light. But the minute I add this softbox into the mix, it becomes a nice soft shadow that you expect from a softbox, and that's what it's best for. The softbox also increases the size of the overall panel a bit more, which creates even softer shadows, and this is the look that is very popular nowadays. So I highly recommend using this light with the softbox as often as you can, unless you want to get the maximum power out of this light, because of course softbox reduces the power somewhat, but I think with the light being so powerful, it doesn't affect the power that much, and you can still get plenty of power, because now we're at 5% power, and again, if I bring this up to 100, this image would be completely overexposed. And then one more light modifier that this softbox comes with is the honeycomb grid. And what this thing does, it reduces the spill of the light coming from the softbox, because it's obviously a very soft light going everywhere, and with this you can keep the light still just as soft but have it more directional. So as you can see, already have less light coming onto my face, partially because it does reduce the power a little further, but also that light is not hitting me as much because it's kind of directed towards, and as I rotate it towards myself, you'll see that I'm getting more power, but the camera is not picking up that light. So this overall combo really helps you improve and shape the light at the same time. So I highly recommend using these accessories as often as you can on this light, or even any other light that you might get in future. It's almost that part of the video when I compare this light to other lights to see how well this light performs. But first, I promise that I will show you some test footage I've done inside the car, so let's see that first. Okay, so welcome inside, and as you can see, I've got the light fitted right into that front corner next to the passenger seat, and I've basically used one self-adhesive Velcro strip there and one there to keep that light in place. And the light is set to just 1% of its total power, as you can see right there, and it's set to 56 Kelvin. So let's see what kind of result I'm getting with this. So as you can see, even at 1%, we're getting really soft light in this very cramped area. There's no way I could get this kind of quality of light if this light wasn't as flexible and as lightweight. There's no way a rigid metal light of this size would fit inside a car, and even if it did, there would be no way to fix it in place. Just so you know what difference this 1% of light makes. I'll switch it off for a second, and as you can see, now we're getting nowhere. So I'm back in the car in a daylight situation with a very difficult lighting setup, where I have a strong natural backlight just behind me there. My light again in the same corner, this time though set to 100, and it's filling in on this side of the face, again quite naturally because it's quite a large light source that is close to my face. And just to show you the difference it makes, because it might not look that much because of that strong backlight, but it does make a massive difference. And let's see what will happen if I switch it off. So it's finally that time when we compare this light to other lights in terms of light quality. And for the daylight test, I've picked the Aputure LS1, which is definitely one of the best LED lights for the money out there, with great CRI and color accuracy. And the second light is the LUPO Superlight 3000, which is more of a traditional KinoFlow style fluorescent light, which I've had for years, but I still love the light that it produces. So as you can see, for this test, I decided to use every colorful object and item of clothing I could find in the house, so you guys can judge the colors from as many objects and textures, as well as the skin tones. Obviously they produce different type of light. The LS1 is more powerful light, but it has a smaller panel. The Falcon obviously produces that softer light. As far as LUPO goes, it produces similar type of light, also soft, beautiful light. But as far as color production goes, these lights are very comparable, which is definitely a good thing. For the tungsten side of this light, I compared it to the Aputure 120T, which is again one of the best tungsten LED lights out there, and definitely a good light to compare any other tungsten light to. And as you can see, the type of lighting that these lights produce is very different, because Aputure is a single LED chip that produces really hard light unless it's modified. The Falcon Eyes produces much softer light, and that was without a softbox as well. So as far as bare lights go, I do like Falcon Eyes quite a bit more than Aputure because I'm not a massive fan of really hard light. But as far as color accuracy goes, I do think Aputure is a bit better. I want you guys to let me know what you think about the color comparisons that I've done. I would love to get your thoughts on how this light compares to the others, so maybe we can get a bigger picture as far as the light quality goes. But one thing is for sure, nothing in this world is perfect, so you have to pick whatever you want based on your priorities. So if you want that amazing flexibility that this light gives you, then maybe this is a perfect light for you. But if you, for example, want a really amazing tungsten light, then maybe it's not the best tungsten light out there. So you just have to decide on what's the most important thing for you. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and if you enjoy this kind of content, then make sure to subscribe to this channel and make sure to hit that bell to be notified of the new videos coming to the channel, because there will be plenty more reviews, lens tests and other good stuff coming, and I hope to see you in one of those videos.